David, welcome back to the Leaders Who Care series. How are you?
Mark, hi. It's great to be here. Very happy to be speaking with you and be back on the series. Very well here. Southwest of France, near the Spanish border. That's where I am.
Yeah, that's rough. That's really tough to live around there and stuff. But you've been around a little bit recently, as we've talked. Maybe one or two or three times around the world or something with some of your experiences and a new book, which I really want to highlight here and get to. But first, why don't we first go? If you could briefly introduce yourself, um, where you're from originally. Maybe a little bit about family if you want to, just a little bit of your background, then we'll get into the business part.
Yeah, sure. So, a French guy, born in the Southwest, from a North African Sephardic family, and then grew up in a little corner of France and quickly moved to New York for 20 years and then moved to New Zealand for 7 years and now living in Oxford and going around as much as I can for the past 2 years. So, a bit of mismatch of multiple cultures and multiple experiences, and I love that. I think that's the richness of the world is what we can benefit from if we have the chance to go and meet that richness. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up in Montreal and we never really even talked about diversity. We just did it. We said, let's try the different foods. Let's try different opinions. How come you wear those clothes? What did you think when this happened and that happened? And it was the way to go, right? And to embrace the differences was fantastic. You said you quickly moved to New York. How quickly?
I was 23 and I was going there because of Hollywood, Western, jazz, and hip hop. And I fell in love with the American pop culture. And boy, wasn't I in for a big ride. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I've always been in love with America. And I continue to have a very sweet spot for you guys over there.
Well, hugs to you too, and stuff from a Canadian American
Yeah.
at the same time. Actually, maybe even a French. Well, I'm not really French Canadian, but Canadian from a French province to America type of deal. What was your favorite when you did that? Did you like the pop, the hip hop better, or what?
I love jazz. That was my thing. Yeah. And actually, when the first time I came to the US, I did the East Coast ride, and I noticed jazzmen in the streets of New York and the streets of New Orleans. And I said to myself, I will live into one of these two places. It ended up being New York, but it could have been the other one.
Super cool. Well, music brings people together too, right?
Exactly.
So that's it's fantastic. Well, I've been enamored as I've gotten to know you over the years, and interesting enough, still haven't met in person. But we've been because we got introduced, I think, when you were in New Zealand, and maybe give a quick brief background about your business experience, your business background, how you ended up U.S., New Zealand, etc.
Yeah. So when I arrived in the US, I was picked up by a funny little company by the name of Aveda, based in Minneapolis. And Aveda is all about sustainability in the mindset and the products and the culture of the organization. And I fell in love with it immediately. I loved the concept and the execution. And so that was my sort of business education of some sort. And after 4 years of hands-on education, where we were selling lipsticks made from the Uruku lipstick, Uruku bush from the Yamanawa tribe, I worked in the nonprofit sector, nonprofit 5 years in New York, working on sustainability, sustainable solutions in the food, architecture, waste, fashion sectors.
Yeah.
And it was a fabulous experience. And after that, unfortunately, the first wave of sustainability was quickly washed out by the global financial crisis and the Enron scandal and the BP Horizon fire and all these horrible corporate greed scandals. And so I moved to another topic, but moved forward about 10 years later. I was called by an ex-client who was CEO of this company in New Zealand, and he said, "Would you like to come and work for me?" I said, "Absolutely not." And after a few back and forth, he convinced me to join him over there, and I had a fantastic tenure. And my role was to focus specifically on the sustainability transformation of this mass retail group, a little bit like the local Walmart of New Zealand. And so that's my last 7 years tenure was to be chief experience and then chief sustainability officer for this mass market retail group in New Zealand.
So do you like the Kiwis, and equally important, do you like kiwi?
So yes, although the fruit kiwi is not, and it's grown in New Zealand, but it's not a New Zealand fruit originally. The kiwi in the Kiwi New Zealand sort of slang is a bird with no wings. So you take all the good of a bird flying, and now you have a no flying bird, and that's the symbol of New Zealand. I love Louise. I'm very grateful that they gave me the chance that they gave me over there in New Zealand. I had a fantastic time. And it's a funny little country at the on the last stop of the bus line, 27 hours away from my hometown in the southwest of France. And yeah, very grateful for what I experienced there, really.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of friends there and whatnot, but I love the way you describe the bird with no wings type of thing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Moving a little fast forward, you took the opportunity of an incredible education program with Oxford. I'd love for you to share that, and at the same time, then segue into is that what inspired you to write the book, or were they a combination of things?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, but I'm going to come to that in a minute. What I just did with Oxford is a global exchange program where the university has partnerships with a whole range of universities from Shanghai and Switzerland and France to the US, Canada, and Mexico, and among in these 50 universities from Berkeley and Yale to IMD and HEC, there is FGV, which is the leading business school in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and they have a sustainability leadership program called the Amazon Experience, which takes you for 7 days on the Taparos River in the state of Para, which is one of the most violent states for environmental and conservation. And we had the chance to navigate the Taparos River and meet the people who are on the front line of climate change, people who work on to protect forestry or continue to protect biodiversity. So all these people that we don't really connect with, I want to meet them and hear them and talk to them and understand that distant idea that these people are actually the stewards of the largest ecosystem in the world, the ecosystem that regulates the climate, the biggest thermoregulator on our planet, so
Right.
that weather in Paris or Los Angeles is actually defined by the quality of what happens in the Amazon. So it's a pretty fascinating concept. And I've always wanted to be there because of our commitment to sustainability and climate action. And being there firsthand is something that I highly recommend to anyone who can do it. I think executives sometimes should drop the boardroom for a trip in the forest, and they should drop the keyboard for conversation with community leaders. And I had that chance to do it, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it's on the top of my bucket list. And as I was mentioning previously, I've got some friends who have done it there, and and now even especially I don't know what they call it, the heat dome or whatnot. It's been over New York, it's been over Europe. That's happening right now. Um, this is real stuff, to say the least.
No kidding. No kidding. So, and back to your question about the book, uh,
Hmm.
my inspiration for the book was a combination of various experiences. And all these experiences have built up to a way to look at society. And I wanted to share that with others because these experiences I've had were all because of conversations with people I've met in my career. And all these conversations have sort of opened my mind to a different way to do business. And being in a corporate role, I was in New Zealand, I saw that actually you have to find a very practical way to bring this idea to reality in supply chain and logistic and financial systems and organizational culture and mindset and governance. So I wanted to work on that. But if you write a how-to guide for corporate leaders, it's a fairly can be quickly generic and framework-led and honestly a bit boring. So
Right.
we wrote it in a way that is much more entertaining and use fables and poetry and advertising and narrative and storytelling and a lot of advertising language as well to bring it to life in a different way so that people are energized by the reading. So that's a bit of the inspiration.
No, it's great to hear that, and I hope you'll be able to maybe share some chapters with us before we go here too. And it's an interesting point because even in our business, which is about talent and impact, people are looking for experiences that they can learn from, experiences that they can appreciate, and also articulate. And what people hear and what people remember, it always brings me back to Maya Angelou's quote: "Is people will always forget what you said, they'll forget what you've done, but they will always remember how you made them feel."
Yeah.
And that's what experiences are about. And I think in business, experiences are way more valuable than years of experience, because it's a whole different thing. So I'm excited to hear a few chapters. Would you be open to sharing some?
Sure, absolutely, my pleasure. I'll start with one which is based on the Stanford University experience called the marshmallow test, because it's pretty powerful. And it goes like this. In 1969, Walter Mischel, a professor at Stanford University, began what would become one of the most famous psychological studies ever undertaken. Cognitive and attentional mechanism in delayed gratification was published in 1972 in the complex world of science. It was a remarkably simple test and it used a humble household confectionery. You probably know it as the marshmallow test. The experiment was designed to study delayed gratification, the ability to put off instant rewards for better outcomes in the future. Young children were tempted with a single marshmallow on a plate placed right in front of them, and they were left in the room for 15 minutes. If they gave in the temptation, they got to eat at one marshmallow. If they resisted the temptation, they were rewarded with two marshmallows at the end of the 15 minutes. On average, one third of the young children resisted temptation, one third, and the immediate reward, one marshmallow, to receive a greater reward later, two marshmallows. It is one of the most reliably replicated experiments into human nature ever conducted. Imagine you are that kid in 1969, sitting in a room with a marshmallow in front of you. Do you eat it now or you wait and get two? No brainer, right? But here is the twist. What if the marshmallow is not a fluffy treat, but it is the only planet we call home? Welcome to the adult version of the marshmallow test, aka the climate crisis. Today is our marshmallow test for all 8 billion of us. Will we continue to give in the temptation right in front of us, the convenience, the pleasure, the conventional solutions, or can we resist? Eating the marshmallow now might mean no marshmallow for anyone in the future. So, how do we apply the lessons from the Stanford preschoolers to our current predicament? Well, first, understand that waiting for the second marshmallow, or in our case, investing in sustainable practices, isn't about willpower, it's about trust. Trust in the promise of a better future, trust in our leaders to make the right decisions, and trust in each of us to resist today's marshmallow. Secondly, it's about knowledge. So, just as children who understood the value of waiting for the second marshmallow were more likely to succeed later in life, educating people, mainly yourself, ourselves, about the long term benefits of environmental conservation can make it easier to make sustainable choices. And thirdly, we need to make the wait for that second marshmallow as tempting as possible. So, the question, and that's the question we ask at the end of every chapter, is what can you do by Friday? So, you can identify a marshmallow in your life, something convenient but unsustainable that you regularly consume or do, and for just a week, resist it. Write down how it feels each time you say no. And by Friday, reflect. Was the resistance as hard as you imagine? What was your second marshmallow, the benefit you gained or noticed from waiting?
I love that. And if I were to add to it, which I don't know if I can, I would say you're actually hungrier for the marshmallow if you waited for it, so it's going to taste even better later. And what happens if you get two marshmallows and you share one and enjoy it with another person?
Well, there's a question. We need to experiment that. But I think the key essence here is consider the long-term impact of your short-term decisions. That's unfortunately where we are, and we have the business case today. Actually, I'm going to read another chapter which talks about the business case,
Yeah.
but makes it complicated to make a decision, even if we know the business case is not easy. So, and it's called the $1 billion dilemma. So let's pretend, Mark, after a demanding work week, you decide to take a relaxing walk in your garden. And suddenly you notice something unusual. So, an odd protuberance sticks out of the ground in your garden. And so you bend down and you scratch at it, and your fingernails come out greasy. And so you bend down again, you scratch further, and your fingers turn dark and oily. Now, let me break the news. You just stumbled upon oil reserves. Right there in your garden, you found an oil well. And let's pretend there is also coal right next to it. You've hit the jackpot. Mark, you have $20 billion worth of fossil fuel reserves buried beneath your garden, quantities enough to worsen climate change. So, what do you do next? Well, I give you three options and you pick one. Option one, keep quiet. You don't say anything to anyone, not a word to your wife or children. You do not go and buy that house in the south of France, a mansion for your aging parents, or the Ferrari you've always dreamt of. That's option one. Option two, you want to cause no harm, but the truth is you need a bit of cash. So you go to the World Bank, or where you strike a deal where you commit to never burn the fossil fuel in exchange for a reduced payment. So you're not getting $20 billion or the Ferrari, but you could still buy your girlfriend a diamond and your aging parents a cottage. So that's option two. Option three, you sell the oil to the highest bidder, guaranteeing you'll be rich forever. Your granddaughter may live in a world of more extreme weather conditions, but she'll get a good umbrella and she'll be all right. So that's your three options. So now imagine you are an ordinary person barely getting by. How do you make such a monumental decision? And let's shift reality again. You are now the leader of a struggling nation with one of the world's worst health index and lowest average lifespan. How do you decide what to do? And how should global institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations, support you in making decisions about burning fossil fuel when the country you lead, face such dramatic socio-economic challenges? How could you resist the temptation to achieve the prosperity others have gained by burning fossil fuel, coal, gas, and everything else? So the question is, as usual, what can you do by Friday? And the answer is that global institutions, banks, insurers, and private investors can now collaborate to create a compelling business case for acting now instead of delaying action and paying a higher price later. Because today we can calculate with reasonable accuracy the future cost of pollution and more extreme weather events. In short, we can invest today to secure a brighter future for all tomorrow. And that is not an advertising tagline. Yeah.
Beautiful. And beautiful. I love the way you make it interesting and you make it real at the same time rather than somebody just lecturing you. on it. Do
Yeah.
you have
So
a
very good.
third? Do you have a third one you want to share?
Sure, I'll share one with a little bit of swearing and a little bit of entertainment and
Cool.
uh,
That'll be a good way to conclude.
yeah. So it's called and it's written by Tony, my co-author. It's called "Do Less Than You Can," and he goes. So Nike, Tony was working for Nike, and he goes like this. In 1999, I attended a gala fundraiser in Sydney on behalf of Nike. The guest speaker was Bob Geldof, and he was in peak fuck you mode. While everyone was in black tie, he was in usual scruffy uniforms of op shop jacket, unwashed jeans, and homeless sneakers, being Bob Geldof. I loved him. 25 years later, I can't remember most of what he said until the last few sentences, which I remember verbatim. He closed by saying to the smug, well lubricated, and fat walleted group of Sydney masters of the universe in his lazy but machine gun fast Irish. Tonight, I ask one thing and one thing only: give less than you can, but a lot more than you fucking want to. If you were deciding how much to invest in your company sustainability program, do not listen to your customers. They have a lot on your mind, and frankly, they don't care about you or what you do. Do it because it's important, because you have to. Do it because you can. And like Bob Geldof said, give less than you can and more than you fucking want to, because it matters far more than a couple of points of consumer preference and a few fleeting lines in your annual report. So, what can we do by Friday? Well, look at your next big purchase, that kitchen remodel, that new car, whatever. And now add 20% to your budget, earn marked purely for making it climate smart. Not because it's sensible, not because it's profitable, but because you fucking can.
Fucking good. Um, um, no, it's brilliant, and thanks for sharing those because they are. It does you it does make you feel. It does make you think. It does make you interested and not bored. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So can you share the name of the book and where people can get it?
Yeah, of course, the book is called What Can We Do by Friday?
Yeah.
No, that's the hook. What Can We Do by Friday? And you can find it on Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk. You can buy it as print version, hard copy, Kindle. And there is more than 52 chapters, one per week, each Friday, obviously. And they're all short and punchy, and they use a different language, but they all close with a very practical invitation to do something practical. And it's all about doing. And the idea was the following: that the way our economic system is built, it relies on decades and decades and decades of industrial revolution and way of doing business and way of accounting for business. And so if you want to shift mindset, you gotta create emotional arousal that are strong enough to create that trigger. So you cannot be gentle and too indulgent in long. No, you gotta be short, quick, snappy, and provocative. So that's the idea behind the book. And again, always closing with what can we do by Friday?
Yeah, the thing I love about that is there's a thing going on in the world right now that it's everything's so big and too much to do that you do nothing. And it's okay to just do your best and do enough. You're not always going to be Oprah Winfrey or a Superman or this or that. But if imagine if millions of people just do enough, what can happen out there? And if you do enough by Friday, the
Yeah.
following week should be pretty good.
A lot. I think there's a lot can happen. And the idea that collective action starts with individual responsibility is powerful. Um, and so there's plenty of chapters. You see, there's the story of an old man walking by the sea and that kid throwing a starfish back in the river, and the old man say, "Hey, There are hundreds of catfish here. So why do you do that? It doesn't matter to them. He says, and the kid says, well, actually, it does matter to that one. So that's cool.
Exactly. It does matter to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment because I think we've become numb to some degree of oh, if it's only one person or two people died this week, it's not that bad type of deal. Well, maybe if it's your mother or your sister or your girlfriend or whatever, maybe it is important. But on a positive note to conclude, um, I love the fact that it's an ask to action, if you will, and that any action is a good action versus the action of inaction, if you will, which is also a decision not to do anything.
Yeah.
Just before we conclude, what's next for you?
Oh boy, I wish I knew. And I think I've been really, really bad at knowing what's next for me in my life. But one thing I've learned is that get ready to be surprised. I think as we carry on with life and as we gain experience, it's so amazing to be surprised. And it's so always refreshing and so exciting that, yeah, you've no idea what's going to happen next to you. And I keep that in mind as I went to study at the age of 52 years old. I went to do an executive MBA in Oxford. I had no idea that I would do something like that. At the age of 45, I moved from the US to New Zealand. And I think that carries me, that keeps my appetite really strong to want to do new things and build and contribute and share. And so there is a bit of that that says, well, I hope that what's next will be as surprising and inspiring and exciting everything else. And I think it just depends on the people I will meet, people like you and people like who are here listening to
Yeah.
this show and this. I think it's all of us having these conversations all the time together. There is so much richness in these exchanges that keeps me going, and so I hope that's what's next for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice to everybody, including especially maybe younger people that are sometimes feel like they have to decide what to do the rest of their life. You don't have to do that. If you hang
No.
around great people, even as simple as that, great experiences come up, and all you have to do then is participate and contribute, and it'd be great. Hey, thanks for sharing. As usual, you're a star. So
Yeah.
my pleasure, my privilege to have you on, and we're looking forward to the next thing and reading the book.
Yes. I keep you posted, guys, and please send me any comment, any question, any feedback on the book. I would love to hear what people think about it.
You got it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. Bye bye.